In the U.S., we talk a lot about the housing shortage, which is really tied to land, and you outline this in your book. And one of the key tensions, which is what you just spoke to, is for many Americans, housing is their main asset. It's how they save for retirement. And they need their home values to go up for that to happen, right? They need their home values to rise. So they're very careful and mindful what happens around them. That's where we get this NIMBYism. Not in my backyard. Are you going to put that multifamily structure up? But at the same time, housing is also a consumption good. We all need housing to live. So we have this big tension in America where we have this thing, land, housing, which is both an asset and also a consumption good, and which part of that tension wins out. And it seems like, for the past few decades or more, the asset side of that argument has been winning out over the consumption one. And now we have all these challenges in America tied to that.
Absolutely. And I think that's part of the core problem. And you see governments all over the world dueling with this. The two instincts. One is to promote home ownership, promote asset accumulation through home ownership, which requires that there's some relatively inexpensive entry point for first-time buyers of property, and at the same time retaining the asset wealth and really the growth in the asset wealth of people who've owned housing for a long time. Governments struggle with this. I think they almost always end up siding with the existing landowners, typically older, typically they vote more established in a given area. The potential people who might own homes in a place are disparate. They're often spread around. They're not concentrated in the same way. They're not as politically influential. But yeah, that is a huge part of it. And you're quite right to highlight the split between the consumption side and the asset side, because I think this is a source of a lot of confusion when we talk about land and housing. And it's also a source of a lot of the sort of conflict and the friction that you see when you see sort of financial mania emerge and sort of land bubbles where you do see that happen. The split between the consumption and the asset side is also a really useful signal that something's going wrong, where you end up thinking of the consumption side basically as rents, right? And the asset side basically as the asset price. When you start to see these really drift apart, the asset price is going up much, much faster than the value of rents. That's the sort of interesting signal to me that something is really changing, usually for the worse.